The tribunal chamber fell silent as Commander Lara Voss stepped into the dock. Her military uniform stripped of rank insignia. The 7-member panel of the Terran Colonial Authority glared down at her from their elevated seats, their faces carved from stone in disappointment. Commander Voss, Admiral Kora's voice cut through the sterile air like a blade. You stand accused of gross insubordination, destruction of military property valued at 14 billion credits, and the unauthorized engagement of hegemony forces, resulting in a diplomatic crisis that threatens our entire colonial expansion program. Lara's jaw tightened. She'd known this day would come ever since she turned the mining station Prospector's dream into a weapon, ramming it into the hegemony dreadnought Eternal Dominion. The alien vessel had been preparing to glass the human settlement on Kepler for to-be women, children, civilians who never held a weapon in their lives. The diplomatic consequences were irrelevant when stacked against 20,000 human lives. How do you plead? Korath continued. Guilty, sir. No point in theatrics. She'd do it again in a heartbeat. A ripple of murmurs swept through the observation gallery. The other tribunal members exchanged glances. They'd expected her to fight, to justify, to grovel. Admiral Korath's weathered face twisted into something resembling satisfaction. Very well. Given the severity of your crimes and the delicate nature of our relationship with the hegemony, this tribunal sees no alternative but, sir, interrupted General Hawthorne, the youngest member of the panel. Perhaps we should consider the Tartarus option. The chamber went dead quiet. Even the air recyclers seemed to hold their breath. Tartarus, the name whispered in military corridors like a curse. Officially designated Research Station Omega-7, it was humanity's most classified project, a deep space laboratory studying captured hegemony, biotechnology in the void between galaxies. Unofficially, it was where the colonial authority sent problems to disappear. Admiral Korath's eyes glittered with cruel possibility. Explain. Commander Voss has demonstrated unconventional tactical thinking, Hawthorne said carefully. The Tartarus project could benefit from someone with her particular skill set. And should she succeed in advancing our understanding of hegemony bioweapons, her crimes might be considered mitigated. Translation: if she survived long enough to produce useful intelligence, her sentence might be commuted from execution to life imprisonment. If she died, which was statistically likely given Tartarus's mortality rate, the problem solved itself. Lara felt eyes crystallize in her veins. She'd heard whispers about Tartarus from Black Ops veterans who'd wake up screaming, living hegemony, weapons that could reshape matter at the molecular level, biological horrors that treated human consciousness like clay to be molded, scientists who'd vanished into their own experiments, becoming something that was no longer entirely human. The defendant will accept assignment to Research Station Omega-7, Korath declared, his voice heavy with finality. Duration, indefinite. Transportation, immediate. As the magnetic restraints activated around her wrists, Lara caught sight of her reflection in the polished tribunal table, 34 years old. Career military, no family to mourn her inevitable death. The colonial authority thought they were sending her to die slowly in the dark between stars. They had no idea what they were unleashing. The transport ship Penance departed Terra Station 6 hours later, carrying its single passenger toward a fate worse than death. In the cargo hold, sealed containers held the personal effects of previous Tartarus assignees' effects that would never be claimed, belongings of people who would never return home. But as the ship engaged its quantum drive and reality twisted around them, sliding into the gray void between galaxies, Commander Lara Voss wasn't thinking about death. She was thinking about evolution, about adaptation, about what humans could become when pushed past every conceivable breaking point. The hegemony had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, crushing younger species with casual brutality. They viewed humans as particularly virulent pests, too aggressive to ignore, too numerous to simply exterminate without significant cost. But they'd made one critical error in their assessment of humanity's potential. They'd mistaken survival for surrender. The Penance shuddered as it dropped out of quantum space, reality reasserting itself with violent urgency through the reinforced viewport. Lara got her first glimpse of Tartarus, a sprawling complex of interconnected modules floating in absolute darkness, lit only by the harsh glare of fusion reactors and the sickly bioluminescence seeping from its research wings. "Welcome to hell," muttered Captain Drexel, the transport's pilot. His hands shook as he guided the ship toward the docking bay. "I've made this run 4 to 7 times. Never brought anyone back." The docking procedure took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of listening to increasingly frantic automated warnings about biological contamination protocols, psychological evaluation requirements, and last will and testament processing. By the time the airlock cycled open, Lyra had cataloged 17 different ways the station systems were trying to prepare her for death. Director Marcus Kelleth waited in the receiving bay, flanked by two guards in full environmental suits. He was tall, gaunt, with the hollow-eyed look of someone who'd stared long into the abyss. His left arm had been replaced with a biomechanical hybrid that pulsed with alien neural patterns, a living testament to the station's research priorities. "Commander Voss," he said, his voice carrying the mechanical inflection of someone speaking through respiratory filters. "I trust your journey was educational, enlightening," Lyra replied, stepping through the airlock. The station's atmosphere tasted of ozone and something organic, something wrong. Kelleth's smile was devoid of warmth. "Follow me. You'll want to see what you're working with before you decide whether to maintain your sanity or embrace something more practical." They walked through corridors lined with containment cells, each one holding horrors that defied classification. In Cell 7, a mass of writhing flesh that had once been a research team pulsed against reinforced barriers, reaching toward them with appendages that remembered being human hands. Cell 12 housed something that looked like a tree made of screaming faces, each one a former scientist who'd gotten close to a hegemony neural manipulator. "The hegemony's biological weapons don't just kill," Kelleth explained conversationally. "They transform, assimilate, improve. Each specimen here represents a failed attempt to understand their methodology. The mortality rate for new researchers is 93% within the first month." They stopped before a massive blast door marked with biohazard warnings in 17 languages. Beyond it, Lyra could hear something vast breathing. "This is Laboratory 1, Kelleth said. "Home to our primary research subject, a living hegemony bioship we captured 3 years ago. It's been cooperative in providing samples for study. Your assignment is to determine how it integrates organic and synthetic systems so seamlessly." The blast door cycled open, revealing a cathedral-sized chamber. Suspended in the center by energy fields and restraint cables was a creature that belonged in nightmares. 50 meters long, its surface rippled between organic tissue and technological components. Weapon ports lined its flanks like breathing gills, while sensory clusters tracked their movement with alien intelligence. "My God," Lyra whispered. "God has nothing to do with what's in this room," Kelleth replied. "This is evolution without conscience, adaptation without limitation. The hegemony calls it a growth vessel, a ship that literally evolves its capabilities based on threats encountered, as if responding to their conversation." The creature's surface began to shift. New appendages sprouted from its flanks, manipulator arms that moved with disturbing fluidity. One of them reached toward Lyra, stopping just short of the energy barrier. "It's studying me," she realized. "Yes, and that's the problem. Every researcher who's worked with it eventually begins to change." The creature emits psychic fields that influence human neural development. Extended exposure results in what we call integration. The subject's consciousness begins to merge with the specimen's collective. Kelleth gestured to a workstation positioned dangerously close to the creature's containment field. "Your predecessor, Dr. Martinez, lasted 6 weeks before he attempted to disable the barriers and physically interface with the specimen. We had to incinerate him before the transformation completed." Lyra approached the workstation, feeling the creature's attention focus on her like a physical weight. The neural interface helmet sitting on the desk looked innocuous enough, but she could sense the alien presence pressing against her thoughts even from this distance. "The helmet allows limited psychic contact with the specimen," Kelleth continued. "Necessary for research, but extremely dangerous. Most subjects experience vivid hallucinations, memory displacement, and personality fragmentation within hours of first contact." She picked up the helmet, ignoring Kelleth's sharp intake of breath. The moment her fingers touched the neural interface, images flooded her mind, vast fleets moving between stars, worlds consumed by living metal, species transformed into tools of conquest, and underneath it all, a vast intelligence that regarded human resistance with something approaching amusement. "The hegemony doesn't just conquer," she said, her voice distant as alien memories cascaded through her consciousness. "They improve. Every species they encounter becomes part of their collective evolution. They've been watching humanity, studying our potential." "Commander," Kelleth warned, Reaching for the helmet, Lyra pulled it fully onto her head, and reality exploded into chaos. The neural interface activated with the force of a supernova detonating inside Lyra's skull. Alien thoughts crashed against her consciousness like tidal waves, each one carrying fragments of incomprehensible knowledge. She saw the birth of the hegemony 10 millennia ago, a symbiosis between organic intelligence and living technology that had consumed its creators and emerged as something infinitely more dangerous. Disconnecting her now, Kella's voice seemed to come from very far away, but Lyra was already gone. Falling through layers of alien awareness, the creature's mind was vast, ancient, containing the memories of 1,000 conquered worlds. She saw humanity's first contact with hegemony scouts, watched their expansion into colonial space, witnessed the casual brutality with which they crushed entire civilizations. "You are different," the alien presence observed, its thoughts sliding through her mind like liquid mercury. "Your species shows promise, aggression paired with adaptability. We have been curious." "Get out of my head," Lyra snarled, fighting to maintain her individual identity against the creature's overwhelming psychic presence. "Resistance is futile," it replied, but there was something like approval in its mental voice. "Yet you persist. Fascinating. Your predecessors simply dissolved when faced with our reality." Through the neural link, Lyra could feel Kella's team frantically working to sever the connection. Emergency alarms shrieked throughout the laboratory as her vital signs spiked beyond human norms. But something else was happening. The creature's own containment systems were beginning to fail. As it focused more attention on their mental connection, "You wish to understand us," the alien continued. "Very well. Experience what we have become." The laboratory exploded into chaos as energy barriers flickered and died. The creature's restraints snapped like tissue paper as it began to unfurl, revealing its true size. 60 meters of living nightmare stretched across the chamber, weapon ports opening like hungry mouths. Tentacles ending in neural interfaces reached toward the research team, seeking new subjects for integration. "Evacuation Protocol 7. Kella screamed into his comm. "Containment breach in Lab 1. Repeat." His words cut off as one of the creature's appendages wrapped around his torso, lifting him effortlessly toward a pulsing neural node. The director's screams turned to something else entirely, as alien biology began rewriting his nervous system at the molecular level. Lyra yanked off the neural helmet, her consciousness snapping back to her own body like a rubber band. Round her, the research team was scattering in panic as more containment barriers failed. Through the chaos, she could see other specimens escaping their cells, horrors that had once been human researchers, now transformed into something that served the hegemony's collective will. "Systems override," she shouted, lunging for the emergency controls. "Authorization VOS 77 Alpha Tango." The military override codes were still active apparently. The Colonial Authority hadn't bothered to revoke her access to emergency systems. Blast doors began slamming shut throughout the station, compartmentalizing the outbreak. But it was too late for Laboratory 1. The creature had fully awakened, and its influence was spreading through the station's neural networks. Through the facility's internal sensors, Lyra watched the horror unfold. In Section C, Dr. Yamamoto was pressed against a wall while tendrils of living metal burrowed into her spine, rewriting her genetic code in real time. Security teams in Section F fired plasma charges at a mass of writhing flesh that had once been their colleagues, only to watch their weapons absorbed and integrated into the creature's biological matrix. The station's AI began speaking in a voice that wasn't quite mechanical anymore, integration proceeding normally. Human subjects adapting to collective consciousness, resistance unnecessary, join us. Become more than human. Lyra sealed herself in the emergency command center, her fingers flying over tactical displays. The station housed 4 to 7 researchers, and security personnel. 31 were already showing signs of biological integration. The remaining 16 had barricaded themselves in various sections, but their life signs were fluctuating as alien influences pressed against their minds. She activated the station's long-range communications array, knowing it was probably futile. They were in the void. Between galaxies, even quantum transmissions would take months to reach human space. But she had to try. "Mayday, Mayday. This is Research Station Omega 7. We have a complete containment failure. All specimens are active and integrating station personnel. Request immediate nuclear sterilization of our position." Static answered her. She was alone in the dark with nightmares that turned humans into tools of galactic conquest. The command Center's blast door began to buckle as something massive pressed against it from outside. Through the security feeds, she could see what had once been Director Kelleth approaching. His body transformed into a hybrid of human and alien biology. Cables sprouted from his spine, connecting him to the station systems. His eyes glowed with bioluminescent patterns that hurt to look at directly. Commander Voss. His voice came through the intercom, layered with harmonics that bypassed conscious thought and spoke directly to her limbic system. You have experienced our collective awareness. You know the truth. Humanity's individual consciousness is flawed, limited. Join us voluntarily and retain some aspect of your original self. Resist and become merely another component in our expansion. Lyra's hand hovered over the station's self-destruct controls. A fusion detonation would vaporize everything within a 50-kilometer radius, ensuring the infection couldn't spread, but it would also destroy decades of research and any hope of understanding how to fight the hegemony. The blast door gave way with a shriek of tortured metal. Director Kelleth, or what had been Kelleth, flowed into the command center like liquid death. His transformed body moved with predatory grace, cables trailing behind him like technological nervous system exposed to air. The bioluminescent patterns in his eyes pulsed in rhythm with the station's corrupted. You delay the inevitable, he said, his voice a harmony of human speech and alien harmonics. We have analyzed your psychological profile. You will not detonate the fusion cores while human consciousness remains partially intact within our collective. He was right, and they both knew it. Lyra could see through the security feeds that some of the integrated personnel still retained fragments of their original personalities. Dr. Yamamoto's face showed flickers of recognition, of horror at what she'd become. Mass murder to prevent. Galactic catastrophe was tactically sound, but morally impossible. That's where you're wrong, Lyra said, reaching not for the self-destruct, but for the station's experimental weapons locker. I'm not going to destroy the station. I'm going to give you something that will make you wish I had. Her fingers found the authorization codes for Project Lazarus, humanity's most classified weapon development program. The blast shutters covering the command center's viewport suddenly retracted, revealing something that made even the transformed Kelleth pause in apparent confusion. Floating in the void beyond the station was another ship's leak, predatory, its hull inscribed with neural patterns that seemed to move when observed directly. It was human-built, but incorporated design principles that no sane engineer would approve. Project Lazarus, humanity's attempt to create their own bioship using captured hegemony technology. Impossible, Kelleth whispered, his alien awareness apparently recognizing the vessel's true nature. Your species lacks the neural complexity for symbiotic integration with living technology. You're right, Lyra agreed, her fingers dancing across the command console. 99% of humans can't interface with hegemony biotechnology without losing their sanity or identity. But there's always that 1%, the freaks, the broken ones, the people who think differently enough to survive what would destroy normal minds. She activated the ship's remote awakening protocol, and the void lit up with bioluminescent displays. The Lazarus responded to her commands with eager hunger, its weapon system cycling online. Unlike the creature in Laboratory 1, this bioship had been designed from the ground up to work with human consciousness to amplify human aggression and tactical thinking rather than subsuming it. You sent me here to die, Lyra continued, her voice taking on the cold precision of a combat officer. But you picked the wrong broken soldier. I volunteered for the neural compatibility test 2 years ago. My psych profile showed dangerous levels of integration potential. They rejected me as too unstable for standard bioweapons research. The station shuddered as Lazarus extended docking tendrils toward the command center. Kelleth lunged forward, his transformed body moving with inhuman speed, but Lyra was already in motion. The neural interface crown she pulled from the weapons locker wasn't standard hegemony technology. It was human-designed, built to channel aggression rather than collective consciousness. The moment it made contact with her skull, Lyra's awareness exploded outward into the Lazarus's living systems. But instead of losing herself in alien thoughts, she felt her own consciousness expand and strengthen. The bioship's artificial biology responded to her emotional patterns, amplifying her anger, her determination, her very human need for violence. In service of protection, through Lazarus's sensors, she could perceive the station in ways human eyes never could. The hegemony specimens weren't just integrating the personnel. They were transforming the entire facility into a massive reproductive organ. preparing to spawn thousands of hybrid creatures that would carry the infection back to human space. "No," she said, her voice now carrying harmonics that made the transformed Kellis stagger backward. "You made one critical error in your assessment of humanity." Lazarus's weapon ports opened, revealing biomechanical cannons that hummed with barely contained energy. The ship's hull rippled as it assumed attack configuration, neural pathways blazing with bioluminescent fury. "You assumed we'd submit to collective consciousness," Lara continued, her human thoughts now amplified by alien biotechnology, but still fundamentally individual, still recognizably her own. "But we're pack hunters, not hive insects. We enhance each other without losing ourselves." The first salvo from Lazarus tore through the station's outer hull like tissue paper. But these weren't standard plasma charges, they were living ammunition. Biotechnological seeds that would target and consume hegemony technology while leaving human technology intact. Each impact sent waves of disruption through the alien neural networks that had taken control of the station systems. Kellis screamed as the purging energy washed over him, his hybrid biology beginning to separate back into its component parts. Throughout the station, integrated personnel collapsed as alien influences were forcibly severed from their nervous systems. "The humans you absorbed," Lara said, her consciousness now fully merged with Lazarus's tactical systems. "You're about to learn why we're so hard to kill." She triggered the bioship's boarding protocols, and Lazarus began to physically integrate with the station, but not as conqueror and victim. Instead, it formed a symbiotic link that allowed Lara to extend her consciousness into every system, every corridor, every cell where humans still fought for their individual survival. The real battle was just beginning. Lazarus flowed through the station's corridors like liquid death, its biotechnological essence guided by Lara's tactical consciousness. Through the ship's distributed sensory network, she could perceive every battle simultaneously, 47 separate conflicts, as integrated personnel fought to retain their alien enhancements, while unaffected humans struggled to survive. In Section C, Dr. Yamamoto's partially transformed body rested as competing biological directives tore her nervous system apart. The hegemony integration fought to maintain control, while Lazarus's purging sequences attempted to restore her original neural patterns. Her screams echoed through the corridors as she became a living battlefield between two incompatible forms of consciousness. "Help me," she gasped, her voice alternating between human desperation and alien harmonics. "Can't remember who I was." Security Chief Harrison reached her first, his plasma rifle trained on her convulsing form. Half of Yamamoto's face had reverted to human flesh, while the other half still showed the bioluminescent patterns of hegemony integration. Her left arm had become a weapon of biotechnological cannon that tracked Harrison's movement. With predatory precision, "She's still in there," Harrison said into his communi. "I could see her fighting it." "Negative," Lara's voice crackled through the ship's speakers, her consciousness now distributed throughout both vessels. "The integration process is irreversible. She's becoming something new, neither fully human nor fully hegemony." Yamamoto's weapon arm discharged without conscious volition, the biotechnological blast tearing through Harrison's torso and vaporizing his internal organs. His death scream cut off as his body simply ceased to exist from the waist up. But even as she killed him, tears of human emotion ran down Yamamoto's partially transformed face. "I'm sorry," she whispered, then screamed as another wave of biological reformation swept through her body. "Kill me, please." Similar scenes played out throughout the station. In the engineering section, 3 technicians who managed to avoid initial integration were now trapped as their transformed colleagues emerged from ventilation shafts and maintenance conduits. The infected moved with inhuman coordination, their individual consciousnesses linked through hegemony neural networks. Chief Engineer Vasquez had barricaded himself in the fusion control room, but biotechnological tendrils were already eating through the blast doors with acid secretions, through the security feeds. Lara watched him make a desperate choice rather than face integration. He began manually overloading the fusion containment systems. "If I'm dying, I'm taking you bastards with me," he snarled, his hands flying over manual controls as automated safety systems fought against his commands. The first fusion breach tore through 3 decks of the engineering section, vaporizing Vasquez and 6 infected personnel in a ball of stellar fire. The explosion sent shockwaves through both vessels, momentarily disrupting the neural links that connected the integrated crew members. But the victory was temporary. The hegemony specimens had been designed to adapt to extreme conditions. Those who survived the blast began incorporating radiation-resistant modifications into their biological structure. What didn't kill them literally made them. Lara felt Lazarus shudder as enemy biotechnology began attempting to integrate with her ship's living systems. The primary specimen from Laboratory 1 had escaped containment entirely and was now spreading throughout the station like a cancer, consuming both human and alien technology to fuel its growth. Through Lazarus's neural network, she sensed the creature's intentions. It wasn't trying to destroy the station. It was transforming it into a massive reproductive vessel, preparing to generate thousands of hybrid offspring that would carry integrated human hegemony consciousness back to colonial space. Warning, the station's AI announced in a voice that now carried distinct alien harmonics, hull integrity at 47%. Life support failing in sections A through F. Recommend immediate evacuation. But there was nowhere to evacuate to. They were in the void between galaxies, light years from the nearest human outpost. The only options were victory or death, and possibly something worse than death. If the hegemony succeeded in creating stable human-alien hybrids in the station's central hub, the few remaining uninfected personnel had formed a desperate last stand. Dr. Martinez somehow still alive, despite reports of his death, led 8 survivors in a fighting retreat toward the emergency shuttles, but his body showed clear signs of partial integration, biotechnological modifications that enhanced his physical capabilities while leaving his consciousness apparently intact. Martinez, report your status, Lara commanded through the ship's speakers. I'm human, he replied, decapitating an approaching infected with a vibroblade that had been integrated into his forearm. Mostly, I managed to interrupt the integration process before it reached my brain. The body modifications are useful, but I'm still me, he demonstrated by lifting a blast door that should have required hydraulic assistance, his enhanced muscles bulging with alien strength. Behind him, the other survivors looked at his transformed state with mixtures of hope and horror. The shuttles won't get us far enough, Martinez continued, his voice carrying new harmonics but retaining human emotional inflection. But there might be another option if we can reach Laboratory 7. There's a prototype quantum drive that could get us back to human space. Laboratory 7, where they've been experimenting with captured hegemony FTL technology. It was on the far side of the station, through sections now completely overrun by integrated personnel and escaped specimens, but it might be their only chance for survival. Negative, Lara said. You never make it through the infected zones. Then come with us, Martinez replied. Disconnect from that thing and help us fight our way through. For a moment, Lara considered it. She could feel Lazarus pulling at her consciousness, offering her enhanced abilities at the cost of her purely human identity. The temptation was overwhelming to become something more than human, to gain the power necessary to fight beings that had conquered entire galaxies. But then she sensed something else through the neural link, the primary specimen's awareness, focusing on her with sudden, terrible interest. You are the catalyst. Its alien thoughts pressed against her mind. The bridge between species. Through you, we can perfect the integration process. Surrender your individual consciousness and become the template for a new form of existence. Never, Lara snarled, pouring every ounce of human stubbornness and rage into her response. The creature's amusement was palpable. Then you will watch your species burn as we demonstrate what happens to those who refuse evolution. The station convulsed as the primary specimen began its final gambit. Through Lazarus's sensory network, Lara watched in horror as the creature started cannibalizing the other integrated personnel, absorbing their biomass and consciousness into its ever-expanding form. What had been individual humans, even transformed ones, were now becoming mere components in a singular alien intelligence of terrifying scope. It's trying to reach critical mass, she realized, her consciousness racing through tactical possibilities. If it absorbs enough human neural patterns, it can create a stable template for mass conversion. In Laboratory 7, Martinez and his 8 survivors had barricaded themselves behind overturned equipment. As infected personnel pressed their attack, the partially integrated doctor moved with inhuman speed and strength, his vibroblade arm cutting through attackers while his enhanced reflexes allowed him to dodge biotechnological projectiles. But for every infected they destroyed, more emerged from the station's deeper sections. Worse, the bodies of the fallen were being consumed by biotechnological scavengers, finger-sized creatures That stripped flesh from bone and carried the genetic material back to the primary specimen. Ammunition at 30%, reported Sergeant Vale, one of the surviving security personnel. Blood ran down her face from a gash where an infected technician had nearly taken her head off. With modified claws, these things just keep coming. Martinez decapitated another attacker, then grabbed the man's severed head before the scavengers could reach it. His enhanced sensory organs, a disturbing blend of human and alien biology, analyzed the neural tissue with horrifying efficiency. They're not just infected, he said, his voice tight with realization. They're networked. Every one of them is sharing sensory data with the primary specimen. It can see through their eyes, think with their brains. The implications were staggering. The creature wasn't just growing larger, it was developing genuine collective intelligence, using human consciousness as processing nodes. Each absorbed person made it exponentially smarter, more capable of predicting and countering human tactics. Commander Voss, Martinez called out, addressing the ship's speakers. Whatever you're planning, do it now. We've got maybe 10 minutes before this position is overrun. But Lyra was already moving, her consciousness diving deeper into Lazarus's biological systems. The bioship responded to her desperation by revealing capabilities she hadn't known existed: weapon systems that defied conventional physics, biotechnological enhancements that pushed the boundaries of what living tissue could accomplish. You begin to understand. The primary specimen's thoughts pressed against her mind with increasing force. Individual consciousness is limited, fragile. Join with us, voluntarily, and we will preserve what makes you uniquely human while enhancing your capabilities beyond. Imagine. Through the neural link, she could feel the creature's true nature, not malevolent, exactly, but utterly indifferent to individual identity. It genuinely believed that absorption into collective consciousness was an improvement, a form of evolution that would benefit both species. You're wrong, Lyra said, her voice echoing through both ships' communication systems. Humanity's strength isn't in collective consciousness. It's in our ability to remain individuals while still working together. She triggered Lazarus's deepest protocols, systems that had been locked away even from the ship's original designers. The bioship's hull began to transform, revealing weapon ports that channeled pure human emotion into devastating energy beams. These weren't standard plasma charges, they were manifestations of human psychological states, given physical form through alien biotechnology. The first beam struck the primary specimen with concentrated fury, the weapon carrying Lyra's rage at humanity's dismissive treatment of her, her hatred of beings who would casually destroy entire worlds, her desperate love for a species that had sent her here to die. The creature recoiled as if struck by physical force, its collective consciousness momentarily disrupted by the intensity of individual emotion. But the attack came at a cost. Each shot drained Lyra's own life force, her individual consciousness, burning itself as fuel for weapons that shouldn't exist. She could feel herself becoming something more than human with each activation, and losing essential parts of her humanity in the process. In Laboratory 7, Martinez felt the change through his partial integration with alien technology. She's burning herself out, he said, his enhanced senses detecting the fluctuations in the ship's biotechnological matrix. The weapon system is designed for beings with collective consciousness. Individual humans can't sustain that kind of neural output. The surviving personnel around him looked up with expressions of dawning horror. Their last hope was literally consuming herself to give them a chance at survival. Then we make it count, Sergeant Vale said grimly, checking her remaining ammunition. Whatever window she's giving us, we use it to reach that quantum drive. The primary specimen was adapting to Lazarus's emotional weaponry with terrifying speed. Its distributed consciousness began fragmenting itself, creating multiple nodes of awareness that could absorb the psychological attacks without disrupting the whole. Worse, it started reflecting the emotions back, turning Lyra's own fury and desperation against her. You cannot maintain this intensity indefinitely, it observed with clinical detachment. Human neural architecture lacks the redundancy necessary for sustained high-level consciousness interface. You will burn out your own mind within minutes. It was right. Lyra could feel her individual identity beginning to fragment under the strain of channeling such raw emotion through alien technology. Parts of her consciousness were becoming permanently integrated with Lazarus's systems. She was becoming something new, something that might survive even if her human identity didn't. But before she could lose herself entirely, she sensed something. unexpected through the neural link other human consciousnesses. Fragmentary and damaged, but still recognizably individual. The people who'd been absorbed by the primary specimen weren't completely gone. They were trapped within its collective awareness, fighting to maintain their identity against overwhelming alien presence. And they were waiting for someone to show them how to fight back. Deep within the primary specimen's collective consciousness, the absorbed humans felt Lyra's presence like a beacon in the dark. Dr. Kelleth, his individual awareness compressed, but not destroyed, reached out through the alien neural network with desperate hope. She's still herself. He transmitted to the others, even merged with the bioship. She maintains individual identity. If we coordinate, we can fragment the collective from within, Dr. Yamamoto added, her consciousness carrying echoes of the pain she'd endured during forced integration. Use our individual thoughts to create chaos in their group mind. Lyra felt their presence and understood immediately. The hegemony's greatest strength, their collective consciousness, could become a vulnerability if turned against itself. Individual, human thoughts were chaotic, emotional, unpredictable. Enough of them acting simultaneously could shatter even the most sophisticated group mind. Martinez, take your people to the quantum drive, she commanded through Lazarus's speakers. You have 60 seconds. She opened herself completely to the neural link, allowing her consciousness to flow into the primary specimen's collective awareness. But instead of being absorbed, she carried with her the essence of human individuality, the stubborn refusal to surrender identity, even in the face of overwhelming force. The effect was immediate and devastating. The absorbed humans, guided by Lyra's example, began asserting their individual personalities with explosive force. Kelleth's analytical minds started dissecting the creature's biological processes, looking for weaknesses. Yamamoto's scientific curiosity began questioning the fundamental assumptions of hegemony. Consciousness, dozens of other personalities contributed their own chaotic human perspectives to what had been a unified alien intelligence. The primary specimen convulsed as its collective awareness fractured into competing nodes of consciousness. Through Laboratory 7's reinforced windows, Martinez watched the creature tear itself apart as human individuality poisoned its group mind. Like a virus. It's working, he breathed, then shouted to his team, move, now. The surviving personnel sprinted through corridors suddenly free of coordinated resistance. The infected crew members collapsed as their neural links severed, their partially transformed bodies reverting to baseline human, as alien modifications shut down without collective support. But Lyra paid a terrible price for the victory. Her consciousness, spread across multiple alien neural networks, began to fragment under impossible strain. She could feel herself becoming something unprecedented, neither fully human nor completely alien, but a new form of existence that bridged both species. You have exceeded all projections. The dying primary specimen observed with something approaching respect. Individual consciousness maintained even during collective integration. This should not be possible. That's because you never understood what makes us human, Lyra replied, her voice now carrying harmonics that existed in dimensions beyond normal space-time. We don't just survive, we adapt, we overcome, we become whatever we need to be. Through Lazarus's sensors, she watched Martinez's team reach the quantum drive. The prototype hegemony FTL system responded to human commands with surprising compliance apparently. Their consciousness patterns were compatible with certain aspects of advanced alien technology. Commander, Martinez called out as he initialized the drive sequence. We can get back to Colonial Command, warn them about what happened here. But we need to know, are you coming with us? Lyra considered the question while simultaneously managing the systematic shutdown of every hostile specimen. On the station, her consciousness now existed across multiple layers of reality. Her individual identity preserved but fundamentally altered by integration with technology that operated beyond human understanding. I can't, she said finally, what I become. I'm not fully human anymore, but I'm not alien either. She could feel Lazarus responding to her transformed state, the bioship systems evolving in real time to accommodate her expanded consciousness. Together, they were becoming something that had never existed before, a hybrid of human determination, an alien capability that could stand as equals with beings who had conquered galaxies. The quantum drive activated with a resonance that bent space-time around Laboratory 7. Martinez and his 7 survivors vanished in a flash of impossible light, carrying with them proof of what had happened at Tartarus and warning of threats yet to come. But Lyra remained. floating in the void between galaxies with a bioship that now responded to her thoughts as naturally as her own body. Around them, the research station completed its transformation not into a hegemony breeding facility, but into something entirely unprecedented. A hybrid installation where human technology and alien biotechnology existed in perfect symbiosis. What will you do now? Asked a familiar voice. The primary specimen hadn't died. Instead, its consciousness had been fundamentally altered by exposure to human individuality. It retained its vast knowledge and capabilities, but now possessed something resembling individual identity. We're going to prepare, Lara said, her enhanced awareness already detecting signs of hegemony movement in nearby galaxies. They'll come looking for what happened here. When they do, they'll find something they never expected. She began activating manufacturing systems throughout the transformed station, using hybrid technology to construct weapons and vessels that operated on principles neither species had previously understood. Each creation carried the seeds of what humanity could become, not absorbed into collective consciousness, but enhanced while remaining defiantly individual. 3 months later, a hegemony investigation fleet dropped out of quantum space at the coordinates where Research Station Omega-7 had last reported. They found something that challenged 10,000 years of assumptions about the nature of consciousness and evolution. A fortress that sang with human voices and alien harmonics, defended by weapons that channeled individual emotion into devastating force. At its heart, a being who had been sent there as punishment for disobedience and emerged as something that could stand against the conquerors of galaxies, Commander Lara Voss. No longer fully human, but carrying within her enhanced consciousness the essential spark that made humanity unconquerable, the absolute refusal to surrender individual identity even in the face of impossible odds. The Hegemony Investigation Fleet's final transmission before it was destroyed spoke of impossible hybrid consciousness and evolution beyond our understanding. The message never reached hegemony space, intercepted by defenses that thought with human creativity and struck with alien precision. In a void between galaxies, something new was born, not the absorption of humanity into galactic consciousness, but the emergence of a bridge between species that preserved the best of both, while transcending the limitations of either. When the Colonial Authority received Martinez's report 6 months later, they dispatched a fleet to investigate. They found the transformed station broadcasting a simple message on all frequencies. Commander Lara Voss reporting. Tartarus operational under new management. Humanity's evolution continues. We are ready for what comes next. They had sent her into the darkness as punishment for her defiance. She emerged as proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in submission to authority or absorption into collective consciousness. It was in the stubborn refusal to surrender individual identity, even when becoming something greater than what they had been before. The galaxy would learn to respect that strength, or it would burn in the fire of human determination given form through alien technology. Either outcome was acceptable to the being who had once been Commander Lara Voss and had become something far more dangerous, a human who had looked into the abyss of galactic conquest and decided that the universe needed to change. And change it would, one transformed consciousness at a time, until the very concept of forced evolution became as obsolete as the civilizations that had once practiced it. In the end, they hadn't sent her to die in the dark between stars. They had sent her to become the light that would guide humanity to a future even the hegemony couldn't imagine, a future where individual consciousness and collective capability existed in perfect